Welcome to the RCA channel again, guys. We have another fit video for you today. Next to me, I've got Carl. Carl's come all the way from France. Which part of France, Carl?
South, Provence.
In Provence?
Yeah, south of France.
Far out. That sounds fancy, man.
Yeah.
That sounds very fancy. He strikes me as a fancy guy. This bike is the brand spanker that's just come out of the BMC factory. Only available in Europe, and I think there might be some in the United States.
Maybe, yeah.
But none in Australia. So yeah, amazing piece of kit. Now Carl's got some chronic long-standing problems which he's going to tell me about in a minute. And I'm hoping that he hasn't flown all this way for no result. He's very jet lagged, so he might be a bit slow during this video. And I'm a bit slow myself anyway, Carl. It's just standard operating procedure here at the RCA. So we're going to take a look at your position on the bike, but first I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about your medical history and try and get some background on what's been going on. Let's get started. 15 hours a week. You're a serious racer, but what Conti sort of level? Or?
Mostly race, ground founders. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so mostly longer endurance races?
More than 4 hours, yeah.
Okay, cool. Tell me, what have you done to yourself? Fractures, joint injuries, muscle tears? Tell me.
A truck hit me on the front when I was 18, on my left side.
Okay.
And since then, I can't find a good position on the bike.
What was the damage? Was there anything like fractures, joint injuries, anything specific that you...
We cut here.
Yep.
Saddle twisted, so cut me here, but nothing broken.
Okay,
Yep.
Big cuts and deep tissue injuries. Yep. Okay. Yep. This thing in your leg does sound like it might be a bit of a problem. So let's hope it's not the major issue on the bike, because it's something that might be hard to fix. On the bike, do you get a lot of the burning pain as well when you're riding hard, or is it?
I always feel twisted on the bike.
You feel twisted?
Yeah.
And does it create pain? Do you get saddle sores or knee pain or anything from it?
Knee pain.
Whereabouts?
External side.
Yep.
Knee.
Cool.
And neck pain.
Okay.
Yeah.
On the one side?
No, all the way. Yeah.
Okay. Some neck pain both sides as well. Cool. All right, mate. Let's have a bit of a look at you off the bike and see how wonky you are. Carl, there's a couple of things that stand out which could be like, misaligning you a little bit. One of them is this large bottle of French champagne which you're carrying in your back jersey pocket.
Always. Yep.
Yeah. Is that a common thing that you would... It seems like a strange thing, but anyway, let's get rid of that. Yeah. There's, what? Is this a block of butter, Carl? It is a block of butter. What are you going to block it?
Always butter. Salted.
Okay,
Yeah,
butter, salted butter. Jeez, man, God, stuff coming out of his butt. So there we go. Oh, there's another. Is this camembert cheese? Are you? What?
I think it is. Yeah.
How French are you, Carl? It's very, well, it's good quality. It's Tasmanian, this one. Yeah. So we've got to get those out of your jersey pockets so we can have a closer look at your posture, Carl. Good. So the hamstring's obviously still attached, which is great. That's a good start. There's plenty of bulk in there. There's a little bit of thickening in the muscle there. We'll have a closer look at this when we lie you down in a minute. Your calves are roughly the same size. Very broad foot. That's a lake foot for sure. You got the right shoes. No significant tilt in your pelvis. No significant gluteal asymmetry. Reasonably straight spinal posture. Nothing too weird, which is great. Totally different left foot. That's interesting. Yeah. So the arch has got a different profile on the right compared to the left, and your left metatarsal head is a lot bulkier than the right. This left foot is almost what we call supinated. It's kind of rolled out a little bit like that. Definitely a little bit different to the other one. Tighten your quads up, Carl, and lock your knees back into extension. Your VMO is much bigger on the right, so yeah, a little bit of muscle imbalance. Cool, nothing too bad. The probability here is that you've learned to adapt your gait around your dodgy hamstring, and probably what's going on is that you've inclined your pelvis a little bit round to the left.
That's what I feel on the bike.
Yeah, which is what we know that you're doing on the bike, which is pushing your knee away from the bike and all of that sort of stuff. But you're probably doing it a little bit with your walking gait as well. And as you go forward on the right, the line of force goes across your foot, and on the left you tend to land then on the outside of the foot. So that would make a lot of sense. I think what's probably going on is because your hamstring is so weak on the left, it's not rotating your sacroiliac joint as evenly as it should compared to the right. It's going to be an interesting problem, mate.
I've got insoles with me always.
Yeah, on your
Yeah,
walking
yeah.
shoes, yeah.
I've got 5 mil.
Okay.
On the left.
Yeah, like a lift
Yeah.
or
5
or
mil
more
lift.
arch. Okay. And does it help?
I can't say it's been.
Yeah,
too
because
long now.
I don't think you've got a leg length difference. Yeah, I think what you've got here is a functional, like a planarity problem with the movement of the whole left quadrant of your body because of the hamstring damage. So let's have a look at how you pedal now and see if this is going to be fixable. Come and throw these on and we'll have a look at you in your natural state first with the shim and everything. See how Carl's left knee sits off the top tube further than his right. His right knee dives in a little bit on the downstroke and his left knee just sits off the top tube a bit. Now that's a consequence of Carl sitting twisted on the bike a little bit. So he's dropping his right hip forward, which is then pushing his left knee away. So you'll see me if I magnify this, if I make it worse, have a look at what his left knee does if I twist him more. You can see it exaggerates the effect. His left knee is way off the top tube. The right knee is almost brushing the top tube now. So he's slightly out of plane forward on the right-hand side. And it's not terrible. It's not as bad as I was expecting, which is great. There's other elements to his asymmetry as well. He drops his left heel more than he drops his right heel, which is very characteristic of this type of a problem. So he's towing the right pedal and dropping the left heel, which is then pulling him out of plane. So there's a bunch of different possible reasons for why this could be, and one of them is going to be a big problem if that's the correct one, which is the hamstring. So we're going to hope it's not his left hamstring doing it. We're going to try a whole bunch of different things to see if we can fix this before we sort of kind of not give up, but before we go, damn it, Carl, it is your left hamstring. We need to do something about it, like in a medical sense. I think we might have some luck here though. I've got a couple of theories already about what this might be just from looking at it. So yeah, this might be solvable, mate. It might be solvable. The first thing we're going to do is remove that shim because I'm pretty certain you don't have a short left leg. What's happening though is because you're dropping your left heel, when that then opens up the knee extension angle at the bottom of the stroke. So the leg overextends, and if someone was measuring you with motion capture software or whatever, they would go, your left leg is shorter. So the shim closes the knee extension angle back down so that when we actually look at your knees, they're kind of doing the same thing from the side. They're opening up at the bottom of the stroke to roughly the same depth, yeah? But the only reason that shim is needed is because of the left heel drop. So if we can stop your left heel from dropping differently to your right heel, you probably won't need the shim. So that's going to be the key. I have a feeling that a lot of this is related to your feet. But let's have a look at your shoe setup now with the G8s that you've got and the shims and wedges and bits and stuff that you've got in there. And we'll see if we can come up with a better solution that's going to help. This is a good situation where we want to measure the cleat position specifically on each foot and each shoe complex. So Carl's got a situation where he's got 2 different size feet and therefore 2 different size shoes. So what we're going to do is individually measure the 2 cleat positions relative to his first metatarsals first on the 2 shoes, and then try and even up the cleat position in terms of how far behind the metatarsal heads each one of the centers of the cleats is. And this is where it gets a bit interesting because they're 2 different shoes, and I'm assuming that the arch supports which you've got in there are a bit different on the left and the right as well. Let's have a look. There's a full 10 millimeters of difference here. Do you know, and this is a tough question because you're quite old now, you're 31. So your memory's probably going like mine was at 31 from all the heavy drinking in my youth. Were they like this always? Or did they become like this in the last 10 or 12 years?
I think during the last 10 or 12 years.
You think they've become like this? Yeah. If I had to guess, I'd say that you're probably right. Remember we were talking about the structure of your 2 feet before, with the left one having a higher arch and the right one having a lower arch. This left foot is almost what we'd call a supinated foot. It's kind of tilted up like this and the arch is shortened, which makes the foot shorter, right? Which is what we're seeing here. Another way of imagining it is that this one is longer because the arch has flattened, so it's gotten longer. His left foot is nearly 10 millimeters shorter than his right. So he's done the right thing and he's bought 2 different size shoes, which is pretty logical. Now, this is where it gets tricky. What you want to do is measure your, if you're setting your cleat position to suit two different size feet in two different size shoes, you must individually measure each one. So what I've done is I've marked where Carl's metatarsal joint sits on each one with a really fine tolerance, and we've translated that down onto the bottom of the shoe, like you've probably seen me do in some other video. And what we're wanting to do is get them roughly the same distance behind the ball of your foot. In most situations here, the person's body, their central nervous system will have a problem. If you've got two different size feet and you don't stagger the cleats exactly the same distance behind the ball of your foot on each side, the central nervous system will perceive the two cleat positions as being different. That's Carl's metatarsal heads, the whiteout marks. And you can see they're staggered by roughly 10 millimeters, with the right one being further forward, hence his much larger foot. This left shoe is obviously a little bit smaller than the right one, but you can see the back edges of the cleats are roughly lined up, which means that the cleats are way off each other relative to his foot. Bit of an interesting scenario. So we're going to ditch this in its entirety, and we're going to ditch the wedge for the moment. We might put it back in later, although I doubt it. There. So this is staggered a massive amount. It's a full 10 millimeters, which is the difference between your 2 feet. It's 10 mil. You guys are still on the imperial system, aren't you? What's that, a quarter of an inch?
No.
Right, so this is the new cleat position that we're going to test here with Carl. You can see those little whiteout marks down here on the medial border of the shoe. Those are the positions of his metatarsal heads, and you can see that they're staggered by around 10 millimeters inside the shoe. That's the actual vertical sort of translated location of his met heads inside each shoe. So that's kind of like a real measurement of where they are. And you can see this now, we've got the cleats staggered to match that. So the left cleat is roughly 10 millimeters behind the right one to match his foot size difference. In addition, I've completely removed the 4 millimeter shim that was under his foot, and we've removed the wedge as well. So we're going to test this and see what happens. Let's have a look at you, Carl. The trick here is to do nothing for a bit and just see what happens. We'll just let you adapt to this before we even look at it. So spin your legs up just to a moderate pace, Carl. Don't kill yourself. Put a little bit of pressure on. The nose of the seat is more visible. He's not sitting laterally anymore. You can see the little red mark underneath his gentleman's region is more centered, which is always a good start. What does it feel like, Carl?
I feel more myself on the left side, yeah.
Yeah, you're sitting much straighter on the seat.
Yeah.
So step one is to at least get your pelvis roughly square to the bike. Yeah, that's always step one. And it looks way better. From behind, it almost looks perfect. Okay. The symmetry, almost perfect. Your left hamstring doesn't know what's happening right now, and neither does your left calf. I'm sure you can feel your calf fighting the pedal. It doesn't know what to do. Now, you've spent 10, 15 years riding, 5 to 10 hours a week or more with this weird foot problem and the cleats in the wrong spot and all this sort of stuff. So your ingrained motor patterning is so heavily embedded with those memories of how your leg has to function that this is going to take some time to come back out. But even now, I've been watching you for about 60 seconds or slightly more, and it's getting better as I watch it. Your left hamstring and your calf in the first 30 seconds was struggling to control the knee extension at the bottom of the stroke. And now, as I watch you, it's getting better and better. But you can feel that left foot, it just doesn't know what to do because your calf, yeah. So there's a couple of things you can do about this to sort of help it work a little bit better. The first one is to consciously don't let the heel drop. Like that, exactly like that. Don't let the heel drop. So to you, this will feel like with your left foot, like you're actually toeing the pedal. Yeah. So you can help to consciously embed the motor patterning a little bit, but most of it happens subconsciously, yeah? But this is one of the drills I'm going to get you to do for the next couple of weeks, is to try and like toe the pedal on your left, like almost point your toe down, but not quite that much, about that much. That's perfect. Because that's exactly what your right foot does.
Okay.
So this has been 10 or more years of not doing this. So it's really foreign. It's really, yeah, it's your brain's like, what? And your pattern generating motor system doesn't know what's happening. But as soon as you consciously do it, your left knee closes down the extension angle and it perfectly matches the right side. So your symmetry actually looks really good. So that's step one, Carl. Okay. There's more steps to this. So what I'm going to experiment with now, Carl, is trying to figure out how much your weak hamstring is screwing things up. And we'll try and figure out if it's quite a lot or not that much. I deliberately didn't do this before because you know how your feet have got quite different arch like shapes to them. I deliberately didn't do this before because I didn't want to do too many things at once.
I feel it straight away.
Yeah. We're just going to investigate what a more symmetrical arch support does to you. Nothing bad there. That makes a difference. That actually helps a little bit. Sorry, Carl, let me borrow your right shoe again. I'm going to de-stagger the cleats again because that helped. So we're trying to figure out here which pieces of the puzzle make a big difference and which ones, which ones don't. There's lots of pieces in your puzzle, unfortunately. It could be worse. I've seen worse. It's a nice complex one. He's not dropping his heel quite as much as he was before with the addition of an asymmetrical arch module. Oh, it looks much better from the front. That's the best I've seen it. Let me borrow that foot again, mate. Sorry. Wow, I didn't think they were that different. Now, this is the beauty of the G8 insole is you can quickly change the arch support really rapidly to test the effect. So we've just dropped that down another notch on the right. Getting somewhere. What I'm going to do now is wedge your right heel. Not the forefoot. This is actually underneath the calcaneum. Now the theory, if this helps, the theory would be that for 10 plus years your foot's been diving across the line so that the rear part of your foot will have probably developed some laxity into what we call a pronatory movement. So if we can stabilise that by tilting it back the other way by a few degrees, the theory being that it may help with the functional symmetry and the engagement of your calf and your hamstring. Let's find out. When you ride, these two joints here where the two sides of the pelvis articulate with the sacrum in here, they roll forward and back. Yep. They kind of go like this with every stroke. Same thing when you're walking and running, right? If you've been sitting twisted to the left for a really long time, the two iliums tend to go like this relative to each other. Now yours don't really display a lot of this off the bike. So this was a guess. Yep. It was a test. What we did there was basically push the left one into forward rotation really aggressively, and it actually like let go and freed up a little bit. And then we throw you back on the bike straight away and see if there's a change in the rotation of the iliums. And if there is, what will happen is as the ilium rotates more freely than it was before, your leg will get longer. So that sounds crazy, but what happens is if there's a pivot point here on the sacroiliac joint, if this isn't pivoting each time your hip joint moves, then it basically makes your leg shorter. Because your leg really is the distance from the center of rotation of the sacroiliac joint to your foot. Not so much the hip joint. On a bike, this movement of the free movement of the ilium is really important. So you basically end up with technically a functionally shorter leg on the left, yeah. So this was playing a small role. Like you can feel, it feels like I've lowered the seat for your left leg a little bit now, yeah. This won't last, it'll stiffen back up a little bit after this, but it shows us that there's, as a small piece of the puzzle is to do with this functional asymmetry in your pelvis. This is one of the things which is going to take time to fix, but we've got methods to fix it. We just have to hope that we can get your hamstring kicking goals again and functioning well, because that really is the key. If your left hamstring comes back online, this will all kind of go away, I suspect. You've probably got 120, 130 millimeters of drop or something. And because of your proportions and how well you bend forward and everything, the drop should be more like 180 millimeters. Yeah, so what happens essentially is because the bar is so high, you just prop your weight up on it a little bit and you brace with your elbows. You'll find that it's not such a problem under race conditions because you're putting out big power and you're sitting down low and your neck doesn't get sore. But when you're cruising along doing like a zone 2 ride, you're like, because it's just you're bracing more on your arms. So the general position is totally fine, but I suspect this will need to go up as you fix your leg. Yeah. So don't be afraid to creep it up. Okay. I'd probably think 2 millimeters every 2 or 3 weeks for the next couple of months. Yeah. And I suspect you'll end up probably about 5 millimeters higher than this. I'm going to have a look at it now, 5 mil higher, and just see if you tolerate it now, but I don't think you will. What'll happen is your left hamstring won't tolerate it. Your right one will be totally fine. It'll just be your left one. Now, this stuff never shows up on footage. We'll look back at this on the editing table and it'll look exactly the same. But that left leg is definitely losing control and you can feel it. Yeah. So what we have to do for the moment is set your seat height based upon the weakest part of you, which is your left leg. Yeah. And that's okay because we know it's going to get better. We know it's only going to improve. It doesn't worsen your symmetry a lot. Like you don't sort of drop out of plane or twist or anything. You just lose control with the left leg. Yeah. So we'll leave your seat height quite low. The other way of doing it is we could leave it higher and then shim your left foot temporarily. But I would move away from the shim if it was me, and we'll just try and strengthen it so that all of this goes away. You can see they're just a little bit different with the way that the arms bend. And that's just because Carl's pelvis is slightly out of whack with the bike still. And he's not deloading his left side with his left hamstring. So it's actually the fault of your hamstring, Carl, is why your left arm looks different to your right arm, which sounds crazy when you say it, but here we are. From above and behind, man, absolutely beautiful. Super square, no twist to the bike. You can feel your left bum sitting on the seat, can't you? That's always nice. Right, so Carl, we're talking about the geometry of this bike compared to you. Now, you're 3 centimetres taller than me. I ride a 56. Some brands I ride a large, other ones I can ride a 54 if it's got a fairly tall stack height. You're slightly taller than me. This is a 51, very hyper-aggressive race geometry bike, and I'm here telling you to get a 47, which is a strange turn of events. So Carl's, the only other problem with his position we've found, apart from all of this complicated asymmetry, is that the bars are still too high for him. He's got an unusual situation of short legs, good forward flexibility, and short arms. So he needs a bike that's quite short, but extremely low in the front end. So the 47 on the next size down in the Team Machine R is 25 millimeters lower in the front end, and that's exactly what you need. This is a 15-degree cockpit, which BMC's got. It's as low as they can go, so we can't go any lower. But that extra 25 mil of drop would unload a lot of your neck issues. It'd take away a lot of the load from your neck, essentially. And the reach is only 10 millimeters shorter. So we just go straight out to a 120 millimeter stem, slam it, and you should be good. So it seems crazy to be talking to a 178 centimeter tall guy about a 47 centimeter frame, but here we are. Yeah. And you've got a seat height of a shade over 700 millimeters. Mine, for example, I'm shorter than you. Mine's up around 755. Just gives you an idea of how different two people can be and why the manufacturer's recommendations don't always work out in extreme circumstances. And this is an extreme circumstance right here. Okay, Carl, we're all finished up here in the Sports Hub, mate. You've come a long way. You come from France all the way to the Sunshine Coast in Australia, and I was hoping when we started that this would have been worth your effort, and hopefully it has been. We identified a lot of stuff going on with Carl. He's got a really bad old injury to his left hamstring, which was complicating matters, a massive foot size discrepancy, 2 different size shoes. You've been around the world before seeing me to have bike fits elsewhere, and you haven't given me too many details on this, but you said you've been to London and a couple of other places, and this has been a big struggle. No one's really been able to figure this asymmetry out that you've been struggling with for a long time. And until now, you haven't really had any good answers. So I'm happy that I've helped you out on this one. But what we've ended up with here is a massive stagger in the cleat position. You can see Carl's got one foot that's 10 millimetres shorter than the left. And essentially what had happened was a comedy of errors, but no one had ever thought to actually set the cleat position to be the same relative to your 2 feet, which I find quite demoralising given how many hours and pounds and euros you've spent trying to fix this problem, because this wasn't that complicated. It is a tricky problem, but this is basic stuff that should have been figured out in the past. So with all of that said and done, with me having a subtle dig at some other people who you've seen in the past, we've staggered your cleats, we've taken out a lot of the rubbish, we've figured out that you don't have a leg length difference, you don't need a leg length shim. We're going to give you a whole bunch of home exercise stuff to try and power train your left leg to get it functioning well again, and we're going to get your left hamstring imaged when you get home to try and figure out if it's been badly damaged in that old accident that you have, that you had back in 2013, so a solid 11 years ago. So we've ended up with this situation on the bottom of Carl's shoes, and his symmetry actually looks quite good with a couple of exceptions. His left knee's still tracking a bit wide of the top tube, and a couple of little bits and pieces, which we're going to work on in the future, and I'll try and catch up with you when you're next back in the Southern Hemisphere, mate, and we'll see how this is going. We might catch up with a video link and see if this is all working long term. So there you go. Me having a bit of a rant at other bike fitters is not an unusual situation here, but this one was a bit of a shocker. I'm surprised that, this never got any further than that. And I'm happy to report that you can remove all of the leg length shims and everything, because we know now from your x-ray that you've had and from what I've seen as well, you definitely don't have a structurally short leg. So that's great news. Yeah, makes it nice and simple.
Happy.
Nice to meet you, Carl.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming all this way, buddy.
That's good.
Let's go. They're yours.